It's like stupid and brain dead and dumb. Fucking stupid.
And I told him, I said, you tell my son, shut up one more fucking time. I'm gonna shut my fucking mouth. That's simple. He shut up and he went in the house. But my...
Listen, there's something actually kind of endearing about this. He just wants to tell a story. He's like, oh, shit, let me tell you about my fucking neighbors driving these guys. Listen to this. You're not gonna believe it. I don't know, there's something kind of sweet about that.
I said the worst idea is smoking pot on the own fucking time because it's legal and then not on down. I don't smoke it around the kids. I don't smoke it around the kids. I don't smoke around the kids. I don't smoke in the house. I smoke out in the shed.
I hope he offers this guy a joint. So you want to join?
Yeah, so she come out chewing the kid's ass. And I got her up the yard at her and smiled at me and she said, hey, I'm Mommy, you will listen to me. And that was I thought yesterday and they were here because I'm away from father's back. And I don't, well, you can't take the beauty again or whatever and go all the way through all three. So that 3 targets there and 4 targets on the bottom. And the fence. Yeah, but you know why I'm here now, so...
Wait, do you want to hear another tale? Wait, come back.
You got the lights in it. What color are those lights on the light bar? There you go.
That was sweet. That was sweet.
Some water.
I hope he makes another cameo appearance. You just hear him like on the fence, like shaking it. Wait! I didn't tell you about the time I went to Denny's.
So
You're gonna feel real silly when Agent Snow walks out of this. They just don't know. Just fucking deputize this guy. he makes a great sidekick. He's like, oh man, yeah, no, he walks around here. Did I tell you about the time he chest bumped me and I fucking beat the shit out of him and threw him into the refrigerator? I like that guy. Just follow him around now. I'm not gonna lie, when they were walking up, I thought this was a fake police car that Agent Snow had put together. That would have been incredible. Can you imagine?
have you seen this car move, Dickie? This one? This one?
Oh my god, it is. I didn't even notice. It's got the cherries and everything. Holy shit. You built this? Oh, so that's what they were talking about with the red and blue. So they must have seen the cops and asked about it. That, okay. Because it's kind of hard to hear Agent Snow. So that's what they were talking about with the red and blue. Okay, now it's starting to make sense. I see.
Fuck! So bad, man. Killed by XC. Absolutely murdered.
generally are very unwholesome. The drainage is bad, and we get offensive fumes from the gas pipes, water closets, and other causes, frequently making us twice. The reason these places could be so unappealing is that most of them were a delivery-only model, so they didn't have any customers actually coming to the establishment to purchase the bread. Rather, it would be delivered, and they didn't have to hire anybody to either sell the bread or deliver the bread because many of the bakers, especially the younger ones, would do all the baking and then do all of the deliveries, and at a really low wage. The weekly wages of these men ranged from 12 shillings to 18 shillings, with the allowance of half a quartern loaf to each person per day. The foreman would make quite a bit more, a pound to a pound 10 shillings, but the second, third, and fourth hands, they were making less than most unskilled workers a day, and they were working a lot more hours. The only time that they had off that wasn't for sleep was Saturday evenings. The bakeries would usually close at 3 p.m. and then they wouldn't open again until Sunday at around 10 a.m. So they'd have like a 19-hour weekend. But to get that time off, they then had to work constantly for the 40 previous hours, basically from Thursday night all the way until Saturday afternoon. Taking it all together, therefore, it will be found that a large portion of these men are employed weekly for the almost incredible period of 112 hours, averaging upwards of 18 hours per day out of the 24, that means 6 days per week. So they were working long hours, but what exactly was that work like? Well, it all started with massive sacks of flour obtained from the mill. These sacks weighed 20 stone, that is 280 pounds, and could produce 90 to 100 loaves of bread, which means that those were some really large loaves of bread. As for the flour itself, it was in theory mostly wheat. They did make some barley and oat bread, but what people expected was finely ground white flour. The only issue is that the white flour required more processing, which made it more expensive. So they would often use inferior quality flours and just add things in to bulk it up and to make it whiter to fool people. As I mentioned, this could be something like ground up bone, chalk, or plaster of Paris, though other more edible additives like potato, corn, and pea flour were also common, as was something called alum. It's a fine white powder that really made the flour look nice and white, and it had been used to adulterate flour for centuries, though it had been outlawed in 1758 for that purpose. It didn't seem to really stop anyone because it was so useful, despite the fact that in most countries it is rather toxic. Now the millers were adding this because it made the flour look white, so they could sell it to the bakers for more. The thing is, the bakers would then often add even more alum, not because it made it look white, but because alum retained a lot of water, so it made it heavier. This made it so very often an entire loaf of bread would only be 2/3 flour and 1/3 butter. Now the issue with all of these additives is that they don't actually make bread. They don't act like flour does. They don't absorb the water in the same way. So things are going to be really gritty, especially with things like chalk. And no matter how much you need plaster of Paris, it's never going to stretch because there's no gluten in it. And so to get it even close to something that could be turned into a loaf of bread, it made it so that bakers had to knead the flour even more than they typically would. And it wasn't just one loaf of bread. They were kneading massive amounts of dough in these long troughs. It was hot, and they were sweating, and they could often take off half of their clothes while they were doing it. And even at this time, in the mid-19th century, people were surprised that they weren't using machines to help them. It will be asked by our descendants with astonishment if indeed it could be true that at this epoch of industrial progress, our principal aliment were prepared in the great manner that it is, by plunging the arms into the dough and raising and tossing it about with such force as to exhaust the strength of the half-naked journeyman and cause streams of perspiration to flow and mingle with the alimentary substance. So I guess it's like anything else, out of sight, out of said, most of these places never actually saw the bread until it arrived on your doorstep, and even those shops where they did have a storefront, people just accepted that the bread in the storefront looked nice.
That's so good still. That's still
wherever
so
they were
good.
baking it had to look nice too. If instead of being satisfied with the aspect of the loaves exhibited in the windows of the baker's shops, we in Europe was the Orient Express, and that is in no small part due to the exquisite cuisine served aboard the train, like these lamb cutlets fried in butter with creamy Duchess potatoes. So thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video as we ride the Orient Express, this time on Tasting History. The Orient Express is probably the most famous train in history, though it wasn't actually just one train, but a long-distance railway service that operated numerous trains, all part of the Compagnie Internationale des Wagons, or International Sleeping Car Company. Running from Paris to Constantinople, later Istanbul, it enjoyed two golden ages. One was from about 1890 until World War I, and the second was between the two world wars. And in both periods, one of the most enticing aspects of the journey was the food being served. Now, starting in the 1890s and going up really all the way till World War II, the menus on the Orient Express and the other trains operated by the company really heavily relied on the recipes of Auguste Escoffier, at least when they were operating the trains near Paris. They included some of his iconic dishes like lobster thermidor, peach melba, jambon azélie or ham aspic, and there were dozens of different potato and lamb cutlet recipes, which is what I'm going to make today. They played with his côtelettes d'agneau à la limite, and one of his most famous recipes, pommes de terre piquées, or Duchess potatoes. So, to make these Duchess potatoes, Escoffier says to start off with a croquette mixture, for which you will need 2.5 pounds or a little more than 1 kilogram of Brussels potato, 7 tablespoons or 100 grams of butter, 2 teaspoons of salt plus more for the water that we're going to boil the potatoes in, 1 teaspoon of white pepper, a pinch of nutmeg, and 1 whole egg plus 4 egg yolks at room temperature. So first prep the potatoes into even-sized pieces, and then add them to a pot and cover with water, then add a good amount of salt, about a tablespoon, and bring the water to a boil and let them cook for about 10 minutes until you can pierce them with a knife, though Escoffier says that they should still be quite firm at this point. Today, usually you can just boil them all the way and you're done with the cooking. But Escoffier says to first boil and then dry them out in the oven. So that's what we're going to do. So drain the potatoes and then set them on a lined baking sheet and bake at 400 degrees Fahrenheit, 205 Celsius for another 25 to 30 minutes or until they're very soft. At this point, take them out.